Good afternoon, and I notice I got about 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to make this quick.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Let's go to the next slide here. Boy, that is really far. Just a little bit of my background. I come from Kansas, but I originally grew up in California. My childhood was running through almond orchards and cornfields. But the reason I mentioned that was because growing up in California, almond orchards were flood irrigation. That was a normal way of irrigating when I was growing up in California. I don't know what it was like out here in the Midwest, 30 years ago, but I just wanted to mention that because it's going to get into what I'm talking about. After high school, I joined the Navy. I spent 8 years in the Navy. Then I decided to go to Oklahoma State after I got out, where I got my undergraduate in geology, focusing on hydrogeology, but they didn't offer that specific course or specific degree there, so that's why it was geology. Then after I finished my bachelor's degree, I went to work for the state of Kansas for both the Kansas Department of Agriculture and the Kansas Water Office, focusing on water management and water quality and water quantity issues for both East and West Kansas. And then here in 2021, I started my journey here at UNL with Dr. Francisco Munoz-Arriola. So pertaining to my research, it's more specifically going back to irrigation, is how do we use modern tools today to make better decisions moving forward? For any of you who've worked with farmers or are farmers, they can be a bit stubborn. They don't like change. They like doing what their father did, what their grandfathers did, because they know it works. They trust the system that they've had for the last few generations. But there's so much more technology and data and advice out there that could make those better management decisions. So what can we do to increase food production as human population increases, but with the limited natural resources we have, such as fresh groundwater or fresh water in general? So where I'm going, and this is what I've spent the last year and a half doing with Dr. Francisco, is focusing on outreach to speak to the farmers, education, talking about what is out there, what tools can they put in their toolbox to make those decisions, and just establishing that efficiency, using those tools to make better decisions down the road. I'm not trying to teach the farmers how to farm better. I'm trying to tell them and advise them on the possibilities of using more tools to save that extra acre foot, to make an extra yield in their bushels. So back in, about March last year, we reached out to Ted Hibbler with UNL. He's a UNL tribal extension educator. And he pointed us in the direction of the Omaha Reservation. It's in northeast Nebraska. There, we met with some folks of the Omaha Nation Public School System, as well as Mike Storm. Mike Storm, we've been working with. He's a farmer up there. He's an irrigator right on the Missouri River, and he's been great. And I just wanted, if he was here, I thank him for his assistance. We're still working with him this summer. He just probably planted corn here a couple weeks ago, so we're waiting to hear back from him because, for those of you know, farmers get busy come planting season. It's nonstop for them until they harvest, even after that, because then they have to postseason stuff. So we reached out to them. We've been working with them, and fortunately, it's right along the river, so they have some natural groundwater recharge from the river. But they're also limited to what they can use for groundwater pumping. And out here, because I come from West Kansas, it was more reliant on groundwater pumping and precipitation. But there was very little precipitation out West Kansas compared to East Kansas or Eastern Nebraska, where there's a lot more precipitation. We're talking 30 to 50 inches versus maybe 15 out west. So we're trying to get that out there. We're trying to make those connections. We're trying to tell the farmers what they can use. And that's where it comes to the education aspect, particularly focusing on remote sensing platforms. Many of us know there are satellites orbiting the globe, all the time, everywhere we go, Google Maps for one. But how many people actually know what these satellites do? Sentinel, Landsat, they're constantly scanning the Earth, taking data, getting that information. But who uses it? Most of what I've seen is in the academic field for research, for big picture, looking at the whole nation. But farmers, one pivot, 160 acres, don't know about it or don't know how to use it. It could take hours to get this data, to filter it, and to make a layout for one field for one specific day. But how do we get that to use every day? How do we make that quick? Farmers, give something to farmers that takes only 5 minutes in the morning to make that decision. How much water can I use today? How much should I use today? Is there forecasts that were more reliable? Can we use multiple forecasts to determine how much weight we should give to a particular day of precipitation? Just say, depending on the stage of growth for that corn crop, how much water does it need? So if it's going to rain and we know the effective recharge is 3 inches, but for that stage of growth it needs 6, then we only need to irrigate for 3 more inches. So we want to use that. We want to use climate forecasts. We want to use more remote sensing data like NDVI, soil moisture, ET to figure out that water balance, to see what is actually needed, but provide those tools quick and easy to the irrigators. And that's where we get into efficiency. How do we know if we're using too much? How do we know if we're not using enough? Question there is, what do we want to do about it? How can we make that change? How can we make the least amount of water used every day for that farmer? And how do we get that farmer to understand that? How do we convince that person to say, these data sets, this information is pretty reliable. So if you trust us, we're going to move forward. So that's what my goal is right now, working with him this summer for a corn crop in his field. We're going to try to start collecting that data and hopefully provide these daily or maybe even weekly advice, suggestions towards how much irrigation he should apply. So I just want to thank you, DWFI. I want to thank UNLBSE, my advisor, Dr. Francisco, and I also want to thank the military and the Department of Veterans Affairs for providing assistance and funding for today's PowerPoint presentation. So I know we're running a little behind, so I don't know if we have time for questions.
Oh, we always have time for questions.